Hello, wrenches, and welcome back to the Wrench Turners podcast, 10 Mil Mastery Edition. In this series, we discuss the important topics and challenges that are relevant to today's technicians. I'm your host, Mr. Joshua Taylor, founder and CEO of WrenchTurners.online, a business providing content and digital products for service leaders and mechanics everywhere. Digital products like the Wrench Turners Wellness Survey are a product that helps service leaders diagnose the challenges in the mechanics' working environments, and the reverse interview, content that drives new mechanics to your store. We appreciate all of you for listening and watching to the Wrench Turners content on Spotify and now on YouTube. We need to spread this information far and wide so our brother and sister wrenches can learn, grow, and succeed on the shop floor. So please, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tucking in today's show, my guests in this series, Series 3, is Marshall Sheldon, Stephan de Santos, and Richard Mueller. In today's episode, we talk about our experiences and circumstances of being a cleanup hitter technician. Let's get into it.
How do we compensate in its entirety, not just pay, our cleanup hitters in the shop?
I think
Richard?
you just asked them. No, I'm serious, because I know there's guys that would rather get paid, a straight time, or they'd rather get paid a bonus on the job, and other guys would rather just have a couple extra days off a year when they're building a shed or something around the house. So, knowing who your guys are is key in the sense of, obviously, if you don't know who your guys are, that's problem number one. I'd literally just have the conversation with them and say, hey, listen, you're going to be getting a lot of the junk. You seem to have no problem getting through the junk. I don't want to always rely on you, because when you're not here, then what happens? But you're always rising up. What are the ways that we can keep you happy in a realistic sense? Is it an extra week's vacation because you're the new guy and you only get 2 weeks? Let's make it 3. Maybe it's priority vacation during the holidays. We do blackout during our tire seasons where you can't book vacation for 4 months out of the year. So that really jams things up when you have the seniority guys that have 5-6 weeks trying to get their week off at Christmas. Maybe it's a bump in seniority that way, or it's a paid day off or a paid couple of days off where, hey, thanks for helping us out. Here's 2 days on top of a long weekend kind of thing.
Okay, let's try and split this up a little bit better. Maybe I need to ask this a little bit better. As a cleanup hitter, because I've been there, and I'm fairly confident that you three have as well. What's a circumstance that you've been in that made you that cleanup hitter? What's an example of that, so that those listening who find themselves in this circumstance and can directly, relate to it, can say, okay, yes, maybe I am. Hey, maybe it's not just me. Maybe I am a cleanup hitter. What's one circumstance where, Richard, you've been a cleanup hitter?
This was early on in my career, and the way I started in this industry, and then I ended up in the shop. I was always a problem solver, especially with the difficult stuff. And then when I was in the shop full time, my general manager at the time saw my strengths and saw that I was good dealing with the junk, the difficult stuff, the stuff nobody wants to touch. You get a ticket that comes in and there's 13 lines on it, and they look through it and they're like, check engine light on. Customer says when they're doing 20 kilometers an hour, their car does this, like just the horrible tickets. And I'd come up and be like, yep, give it to me. I'll take it. I'll look at it. I thrived on difficult situations. That's where I bloomed as a technician, right? Like, I loved the challenge. I couldn't just do brakes all day or oil changes or flushes or anything like that. I loved the hard to diagnose vehicles. The customers who had been to multiple shops and had never gotten a solution, I loved getting those vehicles in my bay. And then from there, we had one technician in the shop who Loved. He did. He did all the diesels. He did all the hybrids. He did all the transmission work. And my my service manager and my general manager went to him and they said, okay, you have your specialties in hybrids, diesels, transmission work, all those other specialties that he had there. Like, those are the main three that you hold dear. Pick one to lose. You're either you pick what you're gonna specialize in, or we're gonna take it away from you and tell you what you're gonna be specialized in. So he picked transmissions and hybrids to give away. So they ended up giving me transmissions and hybrids, and I excelled with it to the point where my general manager came to me at the 2-month mark when they had switched me over to give me that workload, and showed me the warranty sheet, and we had gone from 700% over group to within I think we were at 101%, and the standard was within the dealer groups that we were referenced against. The standard was 105 to 107. So he showed me the warranty printouts, and it was like this massive, and then it just dropped, and then it was all within normal. And he said, "Thank you for that." And then we got audited because because of the drop. So that was when I was with Ford, and Ford went, "What's going on?" And they came out and gave us an audit. I was a technician at the time. I wasn't a shop foreman. And yeah, they had no issues with my workload or no issues with my stories or anything like that. But my diesel tech at the time ended up getting, I think it was a $42,000 charge back to the store.
As a city service manager, they're $42,000 on one tech.
Yeah.
Oh, ow. Okay, so Marshall, kind of the same question goes to you. What's an example of a time where you knew you were becoming or were a cleanup hitter?
I got one that's just like really clear in my mind. So we had I think every shop has an older technician or two, and we had an older technician, and he only worked on the older engines, the kind of engines that you had to have a paper book to work on, because they don't even have the repair instruction on the internet. So
old.
Yeah. And
as like old as Richard old.
Like they didn't
I gotta throw you under the bus every once in a while, buddy.
Yeah. They didn't even offer like the repair instruction on microfiche. So it was like it was only in a paper book, right? And the paper books are like $1,000 because you can't. The manufacturer doesn't make them anymore. So we're at the shop, we're working away. I was doing team engine building with another technician who was our Kenworth master tech, and we were just doing our thing, just hopping and bopping, and him and I were building this engine. And our service manager comes out and he walks over to the well, let me back up. So the older guy, he had a family emergency and he had to leave. We had a customer waiting in the lounge for that truck that had that old engine in it. And so the service manager comes out to our master tech and said, "Hey, can you come over and finish that job out? That truck needs 6 injectors in it." And our master tech walks over, he looks at the engine, he said, "Nah, man, I don't know anything about that thing." And then we went back to the bay. So I overheard it because I'm standing right there because we're working on the same engine together. And I said, "I'll try it. I ain't scared. It's just nuts and bolts," you know what I'm saying? And the service manager was like, "All right, have at it, dude. Here's a work order." Hands it over to me, and I wheeled my toolbox over to it, and I started working on it. And I actually I called the older guy that we had, and I said, "Hey, man, I'm working on that truck that you had to leave in the bay there." So, and he said, "Well, go over to my toolbox and in the cabinet there's a bunch of books in there, and he said there's 2 books in there for that engine. One's for looking and one's for touching. Don't grab the one that's for looking, because that one's brand new and nobody's ever touched it before. So don't mess with that one. Get the other one. I said, all right, cool. So I get it out. I go over to the truck, and I got the book out. I start making the repair. Just, if you can read the recipe, you should be able to make the cookies. You know what I mean? So I just started reading the recipe and started doing my thing. I put the injectors in.
God, I love your old metaphors, man. Fucking brilliant.
And so I started putting it together, and needless to say, we had to put the customer in a motel because I didn't do it correctly. But I did give it a hell of a gander, and I didn't make it. The old guy had to come in the next day and show me how to do it the right way. But long story short is I adjusted the injectors incorrectly. Because they're mechanical injectors, and he had to come in and help me. He taught me how to do it right, so I was able to do it correctly the next several times after that. And but after that, we didn't have to rely only on that one technician to make those repairs. So if I hadn't jumped in and learned how to do it, nobody else would have learned it. Nobody else wanted to learn it. But that's my cleanup hitter story right there.
That's a big deal right there. And being able to jump in, whether you succeed or not in that circumstance, that's awesome. Like, having that kind of attitude, we need to figure out how to bottle that. We need to bottle that and give it to our apprentices to drink. Like, that's the kind of attitude that we need across the board. Stephan, what about you? What's your cleanup story? What's your cleanup hitter story?
I think it was a couple years back. It was a Friday just before a long weekend, so everyone's kind of shutting it down at about 3:00, and
like 2 days ago for us, right, buddy?
Yeah, exactly. So the boats are out, and everyone's talking about their plans, and the cars kind of keep coming in, and we're not really too sure what's going on, and half the shops kind of left early, and now it's like, hey, we got a couple of cars here to get through, and everyone wants their cars for the weekends. We're out of rentals, we're out of loaners, and it wasn't even difficult work. It was just, okay, now I'm switching it back to Saturday shift at Canadian Tire when the oil, the quick lube line is 10 deep and it's 9:00 in the morning, and you got to get ahead of this. So, you bring in one car, you grab an apprentice, hey, can you bring in this car, put the oil sucker on here, you grab a porter, hey, can you drive this one over here and just set it up on the hoist for me, and you can get through 3-4 cars in a matter of an hour or two and get these cars out. But you're jumping around like crazy, and yeah, you have to get a systematic approach to it. So cleanup hitter as well is, you got to know start to finish what you're doing if you're going to be successful. Have a game plan, and if you've played team sports and you've ever been an actual cleanup hitter, on a baseball team, you got to know start to finish what can you do realistically and what can you do hypothetically, and try to land somewhere in the middle. When you got too many, and that if you have enough, you can be successful. Don't bite off more than you can chew in that situation. But if you do bite off more than you chew, start chewing. Don't stand there and panic. Just move the ball inch by inch, step by step. And, I think the more times you do stuff like that, it gets a little bit easier to take on, kind of the panic situations, because you've been here before. You're not as panicked. You got a little bit of experience, and people start relying on people that don't panic in those panic situations. I do thrive a little bit on madness. The worse the winter storm, the more I want to drive in it. Don't know why. I haven't figured it out yet. But I don't typically find that panicking helps me out. Calm demeanor usually gets you where you got to go. And in order to get to that calm demeanor, you got to go through the panic situation.
And that old adage, iron sharpens iron in that regards really matters. You can't go into battle and expect to win without having battled first in some way, shape, or form, or at least practiced. My cleanup part is less about cleanup and more about learning how to deal with the emotional state that you get in under that pressure state that cleanup hitters have to do. So that's where my 445 specials come into play. We had a great great salesperson as a service advisor at one of the Chrysler stores I was at, where I was a tech. And he'd start selling crazy shit, like 445 on a Friday, like you're talking about, Stephan, and he'd sell 5 hours worth of jam, 5-6 hours worth of jam on a Caravan at 445. And he'd walk out in the shop and he'd hold up the ticket. And he's like, who wants to make money before going home? Who wants to make money before going home? And everybody's like, yeah, what are we doing? What are we doing? And it's like, yeah, so I got 6 hours of work in front of me. In this ticket right here. I got 6 hours. Who wants it? Oh, man, no, I want to go home. No. Everybody shouting back. I'd walk over and San Bruno. And it's like, I'll get it done. It's like, yeah, it's 445 special. You can have it done. Get her done. She's waiting. Huh? What? She's waiting. She's waiting. She's already technically on vacation. She's got her Starbucks in hand. She's sitting in the waiting room. She's waiting. She doesn't like waiting. She does not like waiting. You got to get her done. And lo and behold, hour and a half later, 6 hour jam. She's leaving with a car washed, because I washed it at 6:15. Walking out with a 13, I think it was ended up being a 13-hour day. But I made half of that in an hour and a half at the end of the day. And that's where, when I came off the bench and I started doing the same thing as a service advisor, selling those, walking out in the shop, it's like, hey, I got a 445 special, boys. And they say, oh, no, I can't be done. It's like, look, boys, I know it can be done. I've done it. So that cleanup hitter does two things. One, once you realize that you are that person, that you can do that work, and that they're capable of getting the work done under pressure, under high pressure, on the bench. You know, when you're not a leader, when you're not leading teams, when you're not paired up with an apprentice and you've got that extra help or whatever the case may be, when you come off the bench and you get into, like, you know, the first part of the questions that we were asking about how to be a more effective leader is showing them that, yes, it can be done. I can be that cleanup hitter, and I'll show you how to be that cleanup hitter and moving forward. So that's awesome. Richard, you had something to add in there? I think I saw a finger up there.
Yeah, that's where, well, a lot of this comes down to, I think we've touched on this before, where growth, like, you don't grow when you're comfortable. Everybody gets complacent, they get stagnant, and they need those challenges. You need to challenge your crew, you need to challenge yourself, because growth only happens when you're uncomfortable. There's a great saying that it just gets crammed in your head doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or where you say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, you can get some horrible situations. My old professor was 270 pounds, and when he would grab you and drop you to the ground and basically sit on you and crush the living crap out of you, the thing you would go through your head was like, I'm gonna die. But as it progresses, you're like, okay, this is only going to last for 35 seconds. It's only going to last for maybe, a minute at a time, because they're not going to be able to physically hold me for that long. I can do this. I can breathe. I can push through it. But that's the same mentality happens when vehicles hit the bay. I've had a couple technicians who they've had off days. And again, this is nothing to do with what's going on internal to the shop. But I've had one technician who turned around. He was doing a set of timing chains on a 3.6 liter. Had everything apart, down, powertrain down on the cradle, and he just turned and he said, he came to me and he's like, I don't know what's going on, but I just spent 25 minutes staring at this engine. And he goes, I've done a ton of these ones, and I don't know what the hell's going on. He goes, I just sat there and stared at it and blanked out. And I'm like, you need to go for a walk. You need to get your mind right. You need to step away from the job. You need to go grab a coffee, put yourself on break, go hit Timmy's, grab lunch, grab something. But at that point, you need a break. But recognizing that, though, is key for a leader. You got to be able to give them advice as well. You can't just say, just go get in your bay and do the job in front of you. Like, you got to be able to tell them, like, what will help them succeed. You got to build your team as a leader. So.
Well, I mean, like, every day is training day, and you fight like you train. So, you know, if you train hard, you're gonna fight hard.
Oh no! That's the end of today's episode, wrenches. But that's okay. There's going to be another one coming next week, too. Thank you, gentlemen. It continues to be an honor to serve with you, hosting this great content for our humble community. Subscribe to the Wrench Turners podcast on your streaming service of choice to make sure you don't miss the next episode when it drops. If you have any questions about the business or would like to be a guest on any of the shows, please reach out to me by email at leader@justworkhard.com. Now, reminder, tomorrow, Wrench Turners podcast, we have Jim Bernasek, founder of Chameleon.ai. Don't want to miss it. Thank you very much again for listening, and folks, remember, negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you put them away.